I am Todd from GoodCleanFunLife.com.
And I am Tony Rousseau, no relation, and you're listening to Day Drinking on Delmarva, a show about life and culture on the Delmarva Peninsula. We're coming to you live from the Crowbar, an excellent secret spot in Berlin. Except I'm not. I'm in Delmar because of the apocalypse. I'm hunkered down in the great city state of Delmar. All sorts of fun stuff to get to this week, including, our decision that I'm going to make up the introduction as I go along from now on.
I was going to say, you were really on point until you lied to everybody.
Yeah, I know. I said all the things, just not in the way I had them written down. But before we get to all our fun stuff, let's talk about our sponsors. Today, I am sponsored again, even though I claimed I wouldn't be sponsored by them again. They made a great appeal to me by being available while I was running around getting ready for the show, and I can drink today. I got plenty of time in front of me. So I'm sponsored by Evan Williams. It's the whiskey to drink when you don't have good whiskey. I think that's their tagline.
It's the whiskey to drink when it's what you have in your house.
Right, when you want whiskey, but you're out. And Todd, who are you sponsored by?
I'm sponsored by Burley Oak this week. Drinking a Pilsner, or as I'm going to start referring to it as leadership juice.
Leadership juice.
As the man who's on the cover of the can, Bill Todd is going to be running for mayor of the great town of Berlin.
That's interesting.
And as we've discussed, he is cut from the same cloth, just a newer cloth.
Yes, it's a newer cloth of people. I'm not going to say anything about Bill Todd. I like him.
He's one of our first guests.
No, I don't have anything against Bill at all. I like to make fun of the of people whose last names were on the Delmarva Magna Carta is pretty much what I was going for there. But before we get to the rest of the show, we also want to talk about how you can be a sponsor. So if you are an alcohol company and you are dying to hear us talk about how great your alcohol is, even if it's not good, even if it's Evan Williams, I'll start lying about Evan Williams. I'm not proud.
Right.
You can reach out to us and we would be happy to accept your money to drink whatever you want us to drink. And if you want to see what we're drinking, how do people do that, Todd?
They can go over to Instagram and find us on Day Drinking on Delmarva over there. Give us a follow, a like, and post up your stories about what you are day drinking, no matter where you are. And actually just got a message on our Facebook live feed from Pat, who is currently now sponsored by Flying Dog. Thunder Peel. Have you had Thunder Peel?
No, I haven't. That gun at my head. I feel like it's a big IPA, like one of those. What are they called? The juicy IPAs. Something with oranges in it. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
Perfect. And then it's also worth mentioning in our last show, even though we are still broadcasting onto Facebook, the GCFL page, we are also broadcasting on YouTube on the GCFL YouTube page. So we're going to start doing that because why not?
I'm excited about this. And, I listen to a lot of podcast industry news stuff. And everyone's always talking about how you have to be on YouTube about what a good idea it is, because a lot of people listen to podcasts on YouTube, and that idea is so foreign to me. Like,
right.
I mean, I was shocked that Imus was on television, and they're like, "Here's a picture of an old guy screaming into a microphone wearing headphones."
And hey, that sounds like you.
Well, exactly. I mean, like, if you flip through cable, 30% of the shows are just assholes like me, big red-faced guys going, "Ah, man," into microphones. And I appreciate it if you're watching us. I so appreciate it. And thank you very much for your attention and for your time. But reach out to me and tell me what the deal is.
Yeah. Why are you doing that?
I don't see the appeal of it. And maybe it's just because I'm a podcast guy. I've always been an audio guy. Mm-hmm. The video never really appealed to me very much. YouTube never really appealed to me very much as a medium for just doing this.
Right.
I'm not a famous guy, so I guess it's different. Like, I guess if people are like, oh, look, Joe Rogan's on the television, I guess I could not sit in front of a television or of a computer screen for 45 minutes and look at me while I had to listen to me. I could do one or the other.
Right.
I could look at a well-composed photo of me for 45 minutes.
Maybe we could just have that up as an avatar or an
Yeah,
icon.
I could get an oil painting done, and I could make that my thing. But anyway, thank you for joining us wherever you are joining us. If you like the show, we would appreciate it if you told someone else that you liked it. We're getting more and more listeners, and I'm very excited about that, and I hope to continue. And along those lines, tell me how you like the newsletter, Todd.
I love the newsletter. I haven't gotten
All right,
it yet,
I didn't send it out.
The newsletter is great. It's so informative. It has little tidbits of information that really help you keep up with what's happening on the Day Drinking on Delmarva podcast.
Yeah. So I had a little trouble with MailChimp, and I had to move to something else, and I'm still learning how to use it. So hopefully by the time you're listening to this, you'll be able to check your email and find out that what we said on the Day Drinking on Delmarva newsletter. It'll probably be a Destination of Delmarva newsletter. I've got some new posts that I made over on destinationdelmarva.com that I'll probably go ahead and promote as well. And of course, I want to promote all the things I'm doing now, because I'm getting back into the full-time freelancing thing. One project is over, and I've got like 3 or 4 more that I've started. So I'm very excited to talk about that. But before I talk about that, let's talk about your one cool thing, because you have one cool thing you wanted to talk about.
I do have one cool thing that happened this week. In 2 separate instances, we were contacted by friends who want us to talk to their kids about being a creative professional. The world is crazy right now, and it was definitely pretty neat for me personally to have a college buddy reach out, and they had to remind me, but he had actually had intended to do it like after the first of the year, or kind of, said it would be happening in the spring. And of course the whole pandemic happened, but
right.
An old college buddy of mine, I'm looking to catch up with his son, and just kind of talk to him about what we do and how we do it, which is a challenging time right now to figure out. But I think the biggest thing that Natalie and I find ourselves saying to one another right now is, one, we're kind of at both ends of the spectrum for a business. Natalie does websites, which, unless you're my sweet old lady neighbor across the street, I say everybody needs a website. She says I don't need a website. But apart from her, everybody
and get off my lawn.
Yeah, she was actually on my lawn at that point. But the websites are pretty must have, and then the video aspect is great and a nice to have. So that's what we're trying to do, is figure out how we can build our brand and continue storytelling and do fun things, interesting things, and just carry on with what we are doing.
Yeah, one of the things that I've decided to move to, I had mentioned this on a couple of shows ago, but I came up with a new idea, so I'll re-mention it and pretend no one heard the old idea. So I've reimagined the Beer with Strangers podcast. One of the things I did was I handed off the interviewing process to my brother. So starting in August, my brother John will be conducting interviews with beer professionals, beer writers, just like what's going on where you are, but what I've decided to start to do. So here's the thing, and it's going to lead into my story. Because I record myself, sometimes I'll hear me trip over a word, and I'll wait a beat, and then I'll just repeat it in the exact same way. And that's just to make it easier to cut later. Of course, I won't be cutting this up at all. So it just sounds like I'm a stutterer. But
stutter in full sentences.
Exactly. One thing wrong, the rest of it right. Yeah. And along those lines, I've decided to start doing a history of beer section of beer with strangers. So I've reached out to other people who have written books, such as the books I've written, like Eastern Shore Beer and Delaware Beer, and we talk about the fun stories that they had when they were writing their books about their cities.
Right.
And I'm going to produce it like for real. So I do the interview and then I come back and I write a script just like I do with This Is War or with my other show that's coming out, and just put it together like a story. And I think that if I can do this narrative thing, I think it might get a little bit more attention and maybe a little bit more traction,
Hmm.
because it's not, no offense intended to us, just two guys talking off the top of their heads. It's something that's a little bit more produced. And since I have the ability and the wherewithal, I don't see why I shouldn't try to produce it a little bit better. So that'll be
Well,
out in August, and I'll mention it again for sure.
no, that sounds excellent, and I think it kind of goes to what we're trying to figure out right now, Natalie and I. While filming bars is not a thing,
Hmm.
it's a great way to keep your skills sharp, and or even deepening your skill, and also it's it garners attention for somebody to say like, hey, I want you to do that for me.
Yeah, exactly. It's a way to show what you're doing and what you're capable of. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm just about finished with the first episode in that series. I hope to record 3 or 4 before we start, and it'll probably be an every other week thing or
Hmm.
twice a month thing. And we'll, like I said, I'll check back in another couple weeks and let you know how that went. But my one cool thing is that I got to go to Pennsylvania.
Woohoo!
I spent 4 days in the Poconos. I don't know if
Mm.
that's officially Pennsylvania or if you have to go. I think you have to go farther
I think it's
north,
pretty much
and
Pennsylvania.
it looked like it.
Right.
Um, and well, I went there because
It had all the makings of.
right, the show that I'm writing, the show that I wrote, um, is about a murder that takes place there. It's the Sherry Shriner um, reptilian killings. You can look it up if you have a lot of time on your hands.
Do
Uh,
you have a working title?
I think we have a regular title, and I think that's why I'm not supposed to say it.
Gotcha, gotcha.
I will tell you later. Uh, but so this show, uh, as I was doing the research for it, the people from Vice and A&E, I'm sorry, the people from Vice reached out to me and said they're doing a show for A&E about the Sherry Shriner thing, and could I help him? And we did just like a little bit of mutual aid thing. I sent them some contacts, they sent me some contacts. We helped each other find, because it's so complicated and so convoluted. And so we helped each other kind of navigate this weird world. And they asked me if I would be interviewed for the documentary, and I said sure. Now,
Mhm.
when I said sure, the world hadn't ended yet. It was December. And they said they would fly me out to Minneapolis, or to Michigan rather, and I would do, you know, a bunch of stuff there. I would do some interviews there. And my hope was to get audio that I could use in my show. But
Right.
then the world ended and I finished my show, and they're like, well, you said you'd help us. And I'm like, I don't know what you want from me. I'm not going to Michigan. So I went to Toby Hanna, where the murder took place,
Right.
and it was a surreal experience. I've never been filmed. Like, he's like, "Have you been filmed before?" And I'm like, "Yes, I have been filmed before by, by the guy somebody knows who has a great big camera."
Right. Right.
But I'd never been filmed by like people who've actually done movies with,
Yeah.
professional equipment, and it was flattering. I'm not gonna lie, because I didn't get really paid for it. I did get an honorarium, and it was kind of them to offer me that. But I mostly was doing it at the time. I was doing it to get more sources, but now that the thing is over, it was really just like a vanity thing. Like, yes,
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
I'm going to be on television, and I felt bad about that because I don't leave my house, and I yell at my wife if she wants to go to the store twice a week, and then I'm like, I'm going to go off to Pennsylvania and stroke my ego. Does anybody have a problem with that? So, so there's a little bit
And
of
you were
guilt involved.
and you were just talking about how you don't understand, people on visual mediums. So I think you're going to be famous, and now more people are going to want to see you talk off the top of your head.
There is no way. There are two options, okay? They either don't use anything
Mhm.
and I remain unknown, where
Right.
they use everything, and I'm a complete laughing stock. There's really no
There's no in between.
middle ground. There were lots of really good parts.
Yeah.
They what I found out after I got there, that they didn't have what I guess filmmakers call connective tissue. So they had all these individual stories, and I was supposed to kind of fill in the blanks.
Right.
And I thought that my filling in the blanks would just be sitting and doing like a straight shot, because I'm not a video guy. Because I think people would be perfectly happy to see me go ba 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 for 45 minutes.
Right. Right.
But that's not the case. So they actually set up the car. They had like the suction cups, and they put the camera on the front of the car like it was comedians in cars.
Nice.
And they made me drive around for like 3 hours while they asked me questions, and I would just answer questions and talk and drive and things like that. So go ahead.
No, the whole thing is just surreal. I wish I could have been there.
No, let me tell you where you wish it could have been. And then we would go back to they had a condo, and everyone he wore masks in my car. We used my car, but he wore a mask the whole time he was in my car, the director. And, he interviewed me, and when we were in the condo, everyone was wearing masks all the time. And they interviewed me for probably about 12 hours, 10 hours.
Wow.
I don't know who's going to edit it, but I feel bad for them.
That is terrible.
So we got 3 hours in the car, and then 6 hours in the condo, and then
oh my God,
2 or 3 hours in the condo the next day.
That is just exhausting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's me talking, so I don't, I've got to admit it did take it out of me a little bit. But
another thing.
Yeah, right. Like, ask me to talk. Sure. Tell me everything you know.
Right.
All right. And 12 hours later, they're like, okay, I don't want to know anymore. But the other thing that they had to do, or that they chose to do, and this is where I just get, I think, to be a laughing. I just hope they don't use it. But I was just, when you're helping someone and they're like, can you do this? I'm like, yeah, I can do this. So when they asked me to, they're like, well, we need to kind of film you. Like, what did you do when you were here? I'm like, I didn't do anything. I came up, I locked myself in the courtroom, and I read, 5 boxes of testimony over the course of 3 or 4 trips. And it took a long time, and it doesn't make scintillating television, even if a guy as good looking as me is doing it.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, we'll get you in, like, why don't you work on your phone in front of the courthouse? And I'm like, well, because I wouldn't, because I don't. And they're like, no, it'll be fine. Yeah. So I'm sitting on my phone in front of the courthouse, scroll. And he's looking over my shoulder. I'm looking at Sherry Shriner stuff. I'm looking at my notes. I mean, I have my notes. I mean, I can do that. It's just not what I do or did do. It wasn't gross.
Right.
Until it started raining.
Oh.
And so first it was just raining a little bit. And then it started to rain for real. And I'm like, oh, I guess we're done. And the director's like, that's an interesting thing for you to say. What I'm going to say is I'm going to go get an umbrella. And so
did he really say, I guess that's an interesting thing for you to say?
No, that's what his eyes said. What his mouth said was, oh, hang on, I think I have an umbrella. And so then I was sitting with an umbrella in one hand and a phone in the other, scrolling and looking at the Sherry Shriner stuff.
And so it was moody.
It was crazy. And so finally he's like, well, maybe like make a call. So I called my wife, and I told her, I said, yeah, I'm just taking a break. I'm out here. It's raining though, so I won't be out here for long. And then I'll go back in. Yeah, the ladies, the story that I like about my own research was about 30. And now this is for a podcast. This is for a long form narrative.
Right.
And lots of people aren't familiar with that, I guess. But there were several people who just kept asking me how my book was going. Like, oh, well, you put this in your book, put that in your book. And every time I said, well, it's not a book, it's actually a podcast. And I had a 3-strike rule. After the third time I corrected you and told you that it wasn't a book, I said, yeah, I'll put it in the book. I'm not going to fight with you. That'll be good for your book. Yes, it will.
Yeah.
I'm not, and so funny. There was a little bit, I didn't want to stay in a hotel. I still don't want to stay in hotels.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have to stay there overnight, so they rented me a van.
Uh-huh.
And I had asked them to rent a cargo van. I did talk to you about this, or I texted you about this, because I need a car like yours is what I need if I'm going to keep doing this, because this is the third time I've had to take a trip. Todd has this great sleeping office van.
Yep. In fact, why don't I just go with you next time?
You know what? I should have invited you. Then we'd both be dying instead of just me.
Yep.
It was interesting. I'm sorry. I'll finish the one story, but then I want to talk about resort living in general. So they got me a minivan instead of a cargo van, which is kind of what I was hoping I was going to get. And I couldn't get the mattress. I blew up a mattress, but it was too big for the car.
For the minivan.
Right. So I slept in it like a hot dog, if you think of it that way. And I don't know the last time you slept on an air mattress, but it has two sides, like a fuzzy side and a smooth side. And so I had the smooth side down, and I woke up, in the middle of the night. I'm an older guy, had to go to the bathroom, and you can't slide off those mattresses.
So you're like
So I've got my.
So it's more like a Venus flytrap than a hot dog.
And my feet were above my head, like were higher than my head, so I couldn't really sit up. Yeah. So I just rocked until I got myself to the door. And then using my bare foot, I kept kicking at the handle until the door opened automatically and dumped me out onto the campground that they had kindly rented from me.
Oh my goodness.
And that was there were lots of shenanigans, but what was really interesting for me was talking to the crew. The crew were mostly from New York. And
how many were in the crew?
Just 3. There was an assistant director, an all-purpose guy. I mean, he was technically the cameraman, but he also did like the sound, and they made lots of grip jokes, which I didn't get, but I think that there was no grip and they were wishing there was one, something like that.
Yeah.
And then the director. And he said, "What's going on?" as we were driving around. And I'm like, this is why I didn't want to leave my house. This is what it's like by me too. Apparently, there are places in the country where people are taking this pandemic seriously, and the Poconos isn't one of them.
Yeah.
Any more than much of Ocean City isn't one of them.
Right.
And he was just, and this guy, all 3 of them live in New York City.
Right.
And all 3 of them were just
aghast.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely astounded at how people were like, he's like, why? Because the water slides were open. I know they're open in Ocean City, but I guess it felt kind of good.
Yeah.
To go someplace else where everyone was ignoring the rules together because they were on vacation. Yeah. Just so I didn't take it so personally. Like the people in Ocean City aren't, being a personal affront to me. People on vacation all over the country are being a personal affront to me.
I just, we could definitely talk more about that. But I just have one question. When you showed up in Pennsylvania, and there's 3 New York producer, director type people there, and you poured yourself out of the minivan that was rented for you. What was the look on their faces? Was it?
Fortunately, no. I was in a separate campground. I wasn't anywhere near. I was all by myself when that happened.
No, I mean, just when they first laid eyes on you, as this is going to be the guy that we're going to be filming for the next 2 days.
They kept straight faces. It was, I think that, so they'd already pretty much interviewed most of the people they're going to get to interview. And I think that they were happy that I had a pulse and 2 eyes.
Yeah.
Because I was happy to help, and I'm proud of helping. And it did stroke my ego to be treated like a hotshot for a couple days. They got me lunch and all sorts of nice things. I have to buy my own lunch every place I go. If I take someone out to lunch, I have to pay for 2 lunches. It was nice for someone to pay for my lunch for a change.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize how much they wanted me to do. Like there are scenes like one of the last things we did was I did like essentially like a faux news report, like standing in front of the murder house, like, hey, this is the murder house. This is what happened. This is what I think. Like walking up and down the street. And that's the other thing, that I definitely don't want to be a movie star for sure. You can ask again later, but today I don't want to, because there was a lot of, all right, get out of the car. All right, get back in the car again. Now get out and look this way. All right, get back in. Oh no, we didn't have it set right. Get back, like in and out of the car 4 times, like walking, walk. All right, come on back. Try it again and do this. All right, come back.
Yeah.
And it's a documentary, but it's also
Yeah.
like, I don't know. We didn't make anything up, except the fact that I sometimes, like, somebody would walk into the shot, so I'd have to walk there again, or there would be a weird reflection.
Yeah.
Certainly they didn't expect me to act, which was good because I'm not
Right.
very good
Right.
at acting. But
Yeah. And then it
in
just
and out of the car and up and down the street and try it again, like, just walk, just look natural. I'm like, I was looking natural, I thought.
awkward is my natural.
Yeah, awkward is, well, there was one point where I had to come in the house from doing my research, and I opened the door and they wanted me to turn off the light, but I had everything in my right hand. And so I kind of like twisted my body to, and they're like, would you really turn off the light like that? I'm like, I wouldn't have turned off the light at all. Actually, I wouldn't have had it on in the first place. So I don't know how much reality you're looking for here. But all in all, it was a pleasant trip. And yeah, I just I wonder what it'll look like. And I won't know this year. It'll be another it'll be
6
another,
months or so.
well, I said my show is going to be out in April, and my show's not out yet. They said
Yeah.
their show was going to be out in December, so I don't know what that means for them.
Yeah.
But the director isn't doing the editing, so I guess that's why he was so free. And he's like, "Yeah, elaborate for 4 hours, because
Yeah.
I don't have to look at it again."
Shoo. Man, that's tough. I can't imagine being that editor. And I like you,
Yeah, no, I it's a lot.
Yeah.
And of course, there's me, where one of the things that I was mentioning before about stopping and then just starting a couple words back so it fits in.
Mhm.
That works for audio, but it occurred to me as I was leaving that the editor is going to be like, "Yeah, you got it right, but your hands go like this in between the times you say it," because I wasn't think that I had to be in the same position. So I think a lot of the cuts that I offered them aren't going to be good ones. I just
Well, that's
hope they don't use the dopey pictures of me waddling around in the rain. I didn't wear a flattering shirt, or shoes. So, and I
I
mean,
hope
like, I just wore flip-flops. So
I hope that I can get that footage somehow.
really? Because I hope the exact opposite.
That's fun though. That's pretty neat. That's and you've been putting a lot of work into that, and to have an organization like Vice reach out and yeah, for you to have equal or more information than they had is
Well, this is all the time when I was I'm sorry, I have appointments. I didn't turn off my sounds.
oh man.
All of the time when I was a reporter, that's people would be like, "I can't believe you got this." I'm like, "Why? Why can't I have a phone? The New York Times has a phone. We both know how to use it.
Yeah.
Call people and ask them to talk to you. But it just takes a tenacity and luck. And I had both, which is why I think the show is going to be really good. Interesting talking with the crew. They have different information from what I have.
Mhm.
So we might have we definitely have a different arc, but I think we also might have a different conclusion.
Huh.
And so I wake up every night thinking of me saying, "And this is an absolute fact," and then cutting to someone saying, "That is not even kind of a fact." And sometimes I wish I had dialed back my rhetoric, but there's nothing that can be done about it. And we'll see what happens.
There's not much dialing back of Tony.
Yeah, right. I don't dial down well.
Yeah.
And so that was my big week. That was my one cool thing this week.
Yeah.
I am living the bachelor life. Have you been able to get out and about? How are you getting through the days now? Have you kind of loosened up your your circle, the circle in
Uh,
which you travel, or?
well, so interestingly, we went up to Baltimore for a shoot up at Nick's Fish House, where they have, I mean, they already have an outside deck, and they're technically Baltimore City, which has been a little bit more strict. Um, as far as dining and stuff like that. But they built this like a circus tent out in the parking lot. They have a ton of parking, and so they're like, all right, we're just going to double the size of our restaurant because we're not doing anything inside. And take up the parking lot and open flat, breeze, social distance,
Right.
and all of that. And it was actually pretty it felt pretty good, and of course all the staff was wearing masks the whole time. Uh and we took the van up, actually got to see my parents. We slept in the van in their driveway because
Why not? Yeah.
that's why we have the van. And my parents are older, so
Yeah.
it just made sense. And then on the way back, we got a call from Nellie, who was running a very slight temperature and kind of got and a little bit of a sore throat and kind of got herself worked up. And we're going to be cautious and we're going to do the safe thing and we're going to go get tested. And so that was a week ago. And since then, we have pretty much stayed put.
Yeah.
And, I doubt very seriously that, that it was early symptoms because she hasn't had any symptoms since. But as we know, there's plenty of asymptomatic stories.
Mm.
So yeah, we're waiting on that and expecting it to be negative, and then we'll be able to go back to clients and film something. Like the poor chef who's now like working 20-hour days and you know in 180-degree heat. But yeah, I mean we've been, so up until last week we've been slowly, like cautiously, getting out. And it's that what it is, I guess.
It can be difficult. I'm sequestered for the next 2 weeks, and then I'll take my daughter to school if
Hmm.
they open schools, which apparently they're still opening the colleges. So
Hmm.
apparently I'm driving her to Frostburg. And then 2 weeks after that, I'll be like, if I have to leave the house for any extended period of time, I just, self sequester for 2 weeks. It's not quite quarantine, I'll,
Yeah.
no, I mean, I don't go anywhere, but my wife is still in the house and sometimes she goes places, but I don't want to leave the house for 2 weeks when I get home. That way, worst case scenario, if I get it, I can tell you the last couple places I was. Like,
But
I've been home
yeah.
for this long.
And I think that's part of the point is, like, so talking about like going to restaurants and stuff like that, and people even still around here are, complaining about wearing masks, which is just, troubling and asinine and all of that. But it's uh if you're going to a restaurant and you sit down, like it's not even just like you sit down and you're okay, you still have to be a little vigilant. And if you're
Mm,
around other people, just put something on your face.
yeah. Yeah, it was difficult. I actually we did a scene in a bar,
Hmm.
and I was really uncomfortable. And we got there at like 11 o'clock in the morning or so, and no
Hmm.
one was there, and I felt really good about it. And then we were there for like 2 hours, and then at the end, like people just started filing in, and I'm like, I hope this ends soon because
Yeah.
I started putting on my mask in
Yeah.
between takes, just as a reminder to the people around me that I thought it was something. I mean, and all the stores in the bar had, don't come in without a mask. We're not kidding. We'll
Yeah.
send you out.
That's
And
good.
so everyone was wearing the mask in that, I'll do it if you make me, but I won't enjoy it. But you don't have to wear them when you're sitting at the bar
Yeah.
because you drink at the bar. And again, everyone was gathered next to one another. I mean, the bar still smelled of smoke from 1982. Do you really think
Yeah.
that virus isn't going to be in that air
Uh-huh.
until the apocalypse is over, So
Yeah.
that really, I was sure I was dying. When I left that bar, I'm like, "You got it in
This
that
is
bar."
it.
I
This
don't
is
know
it.
what you were thinking. I don't know why you thought that bar being empty had anything to do with how diseased it was, but now I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
So I hope I didn't die because I went to a bar in Pennsylvania.
Just to be on Vice.
Just to stroke my ego. It's nice to be asked. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. It's nice to be asked. It's nice to know stuff. Like, I don't know a lot of I'm not an expert on very many things, but if I've done, 6 months of research on something and written a story about it, I'm an expert on that story, if nothing else. So
Yeah.
it was nice to have the confidence to, like, because I hate when people just bloviate, like, what do you think of NASA? Well, I'm going to talk for 4 hours about NASA, but I don't know anything about it. Like,
Right.
they asked me a question I didn't know. I'm like, you know what? That wasn't part of my story. That wasn't part of my research. I was honest. But
Yeah.
when they ask me stuff like, well, what do you think the Poconos are like? I'm like, it's it's a place for lower middle class families to go and have a nice time. My family went there.
It's like
Um,
Ocean City in the mountains.
Yes, it's like Ocean City in the mountains where tacky is their thing.
Mhm.
It's not it's a feature, not a bug, I think, as the kids would say.
Yeah.
But we're coming up against it. We've been on it for a while, so I'm
Mhm.
gonna close down for the week. Remember, you can subscribe to our newsletter, maybe, if you go to destinationdelmarva.com. Hopefully it will also be on the daydrinkingondelmarva.com website before too long. But until then, reach out to us wherever you can. You can find us socially. I'm at by Tony Russo on Twitter. And Todd, you can get through the Good, Clean, Fun Life Facebook page.
Yep. And GCFL on YouTube.
GCFL on YouTube, where you can see how interesting I looked when I was yammering on for the last 40 minutes. But
Right.
until next time, I got nothing else anyway. How about you?
I got nothing.
All right, remember, at the beach.
It's happy hour whenever you say it is.
Let's see you, folks.
Bye. Hold it.